I'm Scott from Squatch America. So what is Squatch America, you ask? I'm glad you asked. We're a national Bigfoot research group. I started this I started hunting Bigfoot 25 years ago, but I started this about 5 years ago. What got me into this is I am an anthropologist. My expertise is in Native American culture, and I've worked with tribes all over the nation. And they're the ones who taught me about Bigfoot. So, our job for our Bigfoot research group. Yeah, we've got an empty chair. There's one over here, there's a couple over here. There's some back there you can spread out. Anyway, our motto for our research group is our job is to investigate the unexplained, not to explain the uninvestigated. So we have researchers all over the place, and we like to add to that all the time. I mean, we have a lot more than this, but these are the people I can follow on. I don't know how to put this. So, I am actually one of the most dangerous people on the planet. I'm an educated Cajun. So, Daisy label tall roulette. Yeah! Good times roll. Okay, so here we go. So, I'm going to talk about my sightings. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, she has to remind me every time. All right, and this is my wife, Hannah. And this is my good friend and research partner in this area, Mr. Greg Roberts. All right. So, this is what happened to me. We were doing some research in the Blue Mountains of Oregon over by a place called Baker City, if you're familiar. It's kind of a funny story. We have got on our website, we have report forms on our website that you can go to and fill out. And we had got 5 reports in the same week from 5 people that didn't know each other in the same area. So that gave me a good idea where to go. So I was headed out to do some research one evening in that area. And funny thing, my wife, one of her friends, her dad was always into Bigfoot, never been in the woods. Well, he hunted, but he never went Bigfooting. And it was his birthday, so I met him that evening for the first time and took him Bigfooting for the first time. And for the first time he ever went Bigfooting, I showed him a Bigfoot. It took me 25 years. So, it was in April, near a town called Haines, that's just outside of Baker City, but we were up in the mountains, and do you see the Bigfoot? Wait, now you can see it because I put a red circle around it. Bigfoots aren't real unless there's a red circle around them. All right. So I'm going to tell you the story. We were hiking down this road. Now, we were on the edge of the watershed area for Baker City, where people weren't allowed to go into the watershed area, but we were on the very edge of it. There's this road that's been cut off that you can only walk on now. But up the hill, we couldn't go, down the hill, we could. And we were hiking down this trail, and I smelled the worst smell I've ever smelled in my life. And I knew exactly what it was because I had had it explained to me 1,000 times, but I never smelled it myself. And I understand how people can't explain that smell. It's wet dog, skunk, garbage, and onions. Okay? So we smelled the smell, and I couldn't see where it was coming from. So I told the guy, let's just hike down the road and see if this follows us. Because I was hoping it would go across the trail behind us, or we could get footprints because it was kind of muddy that day. but the smell went away. So we decided to turn around and go back. And when the smell came back really strong, we were looking around. I couldn't see where it was coming from, so I just went into the woods. It mimicked me. It went exactly the same sound I made. And then through this little tiny opening, I saw that face doing this, going side to side, looking at me. So to give you an idea how far away this was, this is how far away it was. Come on. There we go. So we're standing up the hill looking down. So there it is. Now you know why they're always blurry. I had 3 seconds to take a picture. I had my camera on a shoulder holster. I had got it up, got one shot, and darted into the woods. So, to give you an idea, it was 165 feet to that log at a 32-degree. See, I'm an anthropologist and an archaeologist, so I measure everything. So, to the log, it was another 44 feet behind the log. After we shot lasers through the trees, we found that it was about 6 feet tall, what was looking at me. That's that log right there. So there's my sighting, but I got corroborating evidence because where it was standing, we found 9-inch footprints with 15-inch footprints next to them. So the one I saw was only 6 foot tall. That was the juvenile. The adult, I never saw. So those are the tracks leading up the hill away from where it was standing. We had some tracks where it was standing, and then went up a really steep cut bank. Give you an idea how steep that was. There's Hannah pointing at the 9-inch track that we cast. And that's the 15-inch track that was next to it. And there was 2 of the juvenile tracks. One was down on the bottom down here out of the picture. And then there was the 3 of the mother tracks, but only 2 of the baby tracks. I think halfway up the hill she picked him up. So that's my sighting. I saw that one, but I didn't see that one. Can you pick that out? Yeah, I looked at that picture for like 4 years and never saw the second one. But I knew it was there because I found the footprints for it. So that got me thinking about faces. We all have them. This lady here, she lives in Eugene. Yvonne Endersby. She's an artist, and she has 2 baby Bigfoot that play around in her backyard. So she draws pictures of them. But other people have drawn pictures over the years of Bigfoot too. These are a whole bunch of artist renditions of what people have saw that have been sent to me. Well, they sent to Bigfooters in general, put it that way, not me. But in my research as a Native American cultural anthropologist, I found a whole bunch of more pictures of Bigfoot that people drew over the years. And what's really interesting is this one right here. That was carved by the Sahelish tribe up in Canada, in northern Washington State. That mask is carved. It was carved 500 years ago. So how does a Canadian know what a monkey looked like 500 years ago? So this Bigfoot phenomenon isn't real, or isn't recent. It wasn't 1969 or 1950, whatever age, yeah, when Jerry Crew found the tracks in California. This has been going on for a very long time, and we're going to get to that in a bit. So there's pictographs and petroglyphs and carvings and dances and legends that go back for a very long time. But what's very interesting, if you look at the photos of today, this is the photo of the one I got. That's Patty from the Patterson-Gimlin film. And those are masks that have been carved over the years from different tribes in different locations. But they all have a similar morphology. They have this big brow ridge. They have these little button noses. They have a very flat, straight mouth. That flat, straight mouth tells me, as an anthropologist, something. They don't have big canine teeth. They have little canine teeth like we do. So we're going to get into some pictographs and petroglyphs. This here is in California. Everybody knows this one. It's kind of famous. It's in the Tule River area, in the Tule Nation. These are found all over the place. Here in Oregon, in California, New Mexico, Arizona, believe it or not. But this one here was found in Richland, Oregon by me last year. You get the idea where Richland is? It's right about there. Where this is found, it's on the border between the Cayuse and the Nez Perce. On my mom's side, my dad's French, but my mom, on her side of the family, she's Nez Perce. So these are the symbols that are with that Bigfoot symbol. Here's an enhancement of them so you can see them a little bit better. The one in the center is a directional. Did you know that most pictographs are stories? What happened here? Some of them are like, if you go up this trail, you'll find water. If you go down this way, you'll find water. There's game up this way. Stuff like that. And then some of them have spiritual meanings, but most of them tell stories. This one tells a story. The symbol in the center is a directional story, You can go up here, but go around this area and then continue the trail. Do not go through the middle of this area. This symbol here is commonly referred to as a stick symbol. The natives don't even talk about it. And I won't embellish on it, but it's not Slender Man. That's a meaning from last year or something. But these are danger, basically, symbols saying, careful. There's danger in this area. So this is the one that's found in California. The one on the left, the one on the right is the one I found. You notice something very similar? They're almost exactly the same. I want to get to the one in California. It has something very interesting on it that I don't think a lot of people picked up on over the years. And pictographs and petroglyphs have kind of been my thing for 25 years. I actually worked on ones in Chocolate Canyon, New Mexico, with Berkeley University. Yeah. Okay. Biggest party town in the world, but they have the biggest Native American cultural anthropology lab ever. So these symbols right here, I don't think anybody's ever really delved into these two symbols that are on this pictograph. To me, they told me a story. What those are atlatls. You know what an atlatl is? It's a spear chucking device. It's a stick that you hook to your hand, which lengthens your arm so you can throw a spear or an arrow farther and faster. The wild thing about that is atlatls went out of style about 1,500 years ago in California. They switched to bows, which means that's 1,500 years old. So how long has Bigfoot been around here? Roughly? A very long time. Because these symbols are found everywhere. By the way, when you got the arms out like that, that's a symbol of largeness. It's big. In fact, the one in California, the one in the center there in real life is 8 feet tall. The one I found here in Oregon on this side is 9 inches. It's really hard to find. But it just goes by how much of the red ochre you have to paint a painting with. If you have very little, you make a very little symbol. So that's the pictographs I found in Oregon here. So, like I said, these things have been around a lot longer than people realize. So, we're going to talk about another thing we found. Actually, last year, we found a nest. So this nest here was actually shown to me by a Umatilla native, and this is his hunting grounds. He was there in October hunting deer, and this nest wasn't there. He came back in April picking mushrooms following the snow line, and it was there. And it was still green like this when he found it. He and I didn't run across each other until August, so he took me out to the area in August, and when I got to it, it was over the summer, so it already had dried out. But it's not the first time we found something like this. We found one, I'd say 20 miles north of where this one was found, old and new. This thing is 14 feet around and 5 feet tall. Every limb in that entire structure is broken, snapped, not one of them cut. I looked at every single one of them. We actually camped out there for 3 days and measured everything in that thing. Some of the limbs are up to 4 inches around that are snapped. I don't know, even people can't put them on their knees and snap it 4 inches around. At least I can't. And another interesting thing is it has one opening, like a little hole in the top of it. Oh, and by the way, we found one of the trees that was about 4 inches around, pulled out of the ground, root ball, roots and all. Someone just pulled it out of the ground and stuck it in this thing. And by the way, this is all woven together. Hannah actually climbed into it and did pull-ups on the inside and it didn't come down.
Don't believe him, I can't do it.
But when he had first found it and did the video of it, you can see there's still mud on the root ball. And like I said, they're all woven together, these limbs, huge limbs. Another interesting thing, and this is just me being weird, is I took a compass and noticed which direction the opening was facing. And the opening was facing to the west. And the Umatilla native that was with me said it is a tradition in their tribe that you set up a teepee and you put the opening to the west. Another interesting thing about this one is there were trees knocked over all the way around this thing, like it was surrounded by a fence. So they had, I mean, these were big, pushed over and broken off. Give you an idea, you can see the down trees all the way around it. So, what is this thing? I think it's too small for an 8-foot tall creature to be have bedding in the bottom of it. It has this one little opening at the top. After being there for 3 days, we posted this on our YouTube channel. We got some messages back from people. And it's kind of funny. We went back out into the woods. Doggone me, what I think it was, went back and somebody had sent me a message saying what they thought it was, and it's the same thing. I think these are cribs.
66.
I think this is where they stick their babies in the springtime when they go off hunting and stuff. It's like a playpen. So we decided to test that. We went and found a baby bigfoot to see if he could fit in there. Actually, it was just a stick. But if Hannah was 8 foot tall, it would have been easier for her to bend over and put something in this thing. But wait, that's not all. This thing was 103.42 feet from a river. And that thing in the middle, that's not a road. I wanted to point that out. This is from Google Maps. That's not even there anymore. But in 2019, there's a flood in that area when the river flooded. So that's actually not a road. That's where the flood went through there. But down by the river, we found a 11-inch footprint. Junior, after he grew up a little bit, went down to the creek. So we have that cast. Actually, it's in the truck. I didn't remove it, but the cast doesn't show a whole lot because at the end of it, it was off an edge. So you can see where that arrow is. It actually went down, and I had a hard time trying to keep the casting material in there. Okay, here's.
All right, so I'm going to use the microphone. I'm going to talk quieter than I normally would. All right, how many of you are here because you've heard me talking to Bill Meyer and Mr. Outdoors? Okay.
Yeah, I know you.
Yes, yes. Well, hang on, we're going to make it snow next week again. So,
Yay.
I was doing this though before Bill called me up and he says, "Hey, we're going to do an outdoor report." I'm like, "Well, great. Who's doing it?" "You are." "Why?" "Because Ted Dole at Waterworld wants you to." "Oh, all right. Fine. Ted wants me to." So that's how I came into all of your lives. But Bigfoot came into my life and I didn't even know he had. August 1984, my buddy Rick Campbell and I were up scouting elk herds in the Sky Lakes Wilderness. And first day out was great. Beautiful, sunny, lots of elk, lots of deer. Second day, there was an oppressive stillness in the air, like I can't even begin to describe. And no birds, no squirrels, dead silence. Eerie, dead silence. And we're like, what? So we go to bed that night, 2:30 in the morning. I wake up, bright full moon. I'm laying there and I'm hearing coyotes sounding off. I'm going, okay, so I'm hearing coyotes. Starting to drift back to sleep. Out of the darkness and not very far away, wound up hearing this. And the woods ring like you wouldn't believe. And the coyotes start howling, and I sat straight up in that bedroll and went, what in God's name was that? Rick goes, "I've been waiting for you to wake up for half an hour." He goes, "That thing was right over here across the tree line from us when it woke me up." So we immediately started the guessing game. Wolf? That's eventually we decided it had to be. Because, yeah, I had heard about Bigfoot by this point. I mean, I grew up here. All of us who grow up here, even if you spend any amount of time here, you're going to hear the Bigfoot stories. You just do. I remember being a little kid and one of my dad's best friends running over and talking about these Bigfoots they were running into when they were building Applegate Dam. He even brought a recording one night. It was the craziest sounding thing I ever heard, and it kind of. I didn't know at that time there was a name for that. It's called samurai chatter, and the exact same thing is on the Sierra Sounds that was recorded in the early 70s. Only now I'm listening to it from the main construction camp for Applegate Dam. Interesting. Okay. I never, ever, ever in my life thought about these things making a sound. I thought if they're real, I've heard stories about footprints, I've heard stories about people saying they've seen it. I've never heard anybody talk about hearing them. So it's like, okay, that's interesting. I had no clue what I heard. It wasn't until 2008, when I'm going to watch a ski race from Europe on the old outdoor channel, that all of a sudden I come in on the tail end of the show and I start watching it, and I get kind of curious and look, what are these guys doing out in the woods playing capture the flag in the middle of the night with night vision equipment? And I couldn't figure out what they were doing. And then they did a sighting recreation. I went, oh, Bigfoot. Okay. So I'll watch this. End of the show comes up. They put 2 Bigfoot websites up to go visit for more information. First one, bfro.net. Of course, because of finding Bigfoot, everybody knows who BFRO is. Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. Yes, I am affiliated with them. So anyway, I get in there, get to the website. One of the first things I see on the left-hand side, pictures, videos, sound recordings. Some of the sound recordings. Well, that's new. Click on it. The very first one they take you to, and I think they still do, because Matt recorded it in Ohio in 1994. As soon as I played it, it's called the Columbiana County, Ohio Howl. You will hear them in the show talk about, we heard an Ohio howl. This is exactly what they're talking about. It's exactly what I heard at Sky Lakes. It's exactly what I replicated for you. And I'm listening to that. And what got my attention was the tonal quality was the same, the carry projection was the same. And you got dogs in Ohio responding the same way the coyotes were out here at Sky Lakes. Done. Convinced on the spot. You can't possibly get into the Sky Lakes Wilderness in Oregon, go to Ohio, have the exact same sound with the exact same canine response happening. So I was in. Fast forward April 2008. Right down here at Taylor Sausage, met a guy by the name of Cliff Barrett. Cliff was here because he was scouting for locations to do a BFRO expedition. And I'd already been in touch with BFRO. They knew I knew the area well. They put Cliff and I together. Sitting in Taylor, Cliff told me something he will repeat to this day if you go to North American Bigfoot Center in Boring. Cave Junction, Oregon has the best stories I have ever heard. And he says the best stories about people actually living with them, not just seeing them, living with them. So Cliff got to hear some of the stories that he and I are hoping we get to hear tonight. Okay, so real quick, he's got me set up. August 20th last year, I'm up at Cliff's. He talked about Paul Freeman. He and I both got to meet Paul's son, Michael. Tremendous guy. Love the guy to death. Well, Michael has been picking up on the work his dad did. And they start going through all of this work that he's done. And there is now a book called The Freeman Files. If you don't own another Bigfoot book, I recommend you get that one. It is something completely different. It's not just a book. It's got video in there. It's got pictures in there. You hear Paul in his own voice. It's got the little QR codes. You activate it, and all this stuff comes to life. So it's not just simply a book. It's far more than that. So on August 20th, we go up to hear Michael describe his dad's work, and he showed us the Freeman footage, the very famous footage that he alluded to that was actually filmed at Deduck Springs in 1994. So I'm sitting in the North American Bigfoot Center on August 20th. My background as a researcher, he said we all specialize in something. I'm a criminal investigator. That started when I was in the fire service over in Central Oregon, was part of the arson task force over there, because unfortunately we had a couple serious fire bugs get loose and start a number of wildland fires. So I come at it from the criminal investigation technique. Since Roger and Bob made their film, one thing that kind of got overlooked, when Patty turns to look at Bob coming across the creek, and he's going to show this. So Patty turns and looks right at Bob as he rides his horse across the creek at her. Roger is yelling right there. She's looking at Bob coming at her. Roger's yelling at him, "Don't leave me." Roger's yelling at him, "Don't leave me," because Roger's already seen the other footprints there, and he knew there were other Bigfoots present. But when you watch Patty, by the way, look at that foot position, look at that angle. You can see the bottom of her foot. The other thing we've seen, she's walking in what's called a compliant stride, that as a human being is almost impossible to do. In a suit like that, there's no way you could pull it off, because what happens is they step forward, it's kind of this glide. Notice how they always kind of stay bent on the knee. Then it swings and pivots so they can bring the foot around and clear. When you watch her walk, you see that compliant stride. That was something that I knew, that's not a suit. It's been proven now, that's not a suit. The suit would be worth millions upon millions, and nobody could produce it. Yeah, it's not a suit. So you've got Patty wide out in the open in the middle of the day. You've got the Bigfoot in the Freeman footage wide out in the open in the middle of the day, and we now know there was a baby there. Immediately it popped into my head. Roger's yelling at Bob, "Don't leave me, there's other Bigfoots here." I called him because I know he's going to go see Bob Gimlin. And I said, "Scott, do me a favor. Ask Bob this. Those other footprints that were present, was one of the sets smaller?"
So I'm wondering if we hold that mic up to the speakers in the back.
Yeah, we're gonna hope to get better sound here for you.
The question is, when you guys went back and passed the prints the next day, right?
Yeah.
Okay, were they different size prints?
Well, there was some different size prints there, but the same ones were there too. But see, there was a trackway of what I thought was female, because they were longer and narrower, and it appeared to be a young female that was making them. And I followed them for almost a mile down through the sand there by Bumping Lake. And and they disappear down into a little creek and up the other side and into the woods. And so I didn't make that jump down in there, because I didn't want to walk through the creek. The water was about that deep, and so I just let it go.
Okay, well, thank you.
So little me asked a question nobody had ever asked that guy. And that's what Scott was telling me. Bob goes, "Nobody had ever asked the question." Then he rolled the tape, and if you didn't hear it, Bob confirmed, yes, there was a smaller set of footprints. Now here's something he didn't point out on film, but he did tell Scott. Patty's going this way. The smaller footprints went the opposite direction. So now as an investigator, I look for motive and cause. What's causing this behavior? Now we know pretty unequivocally, kids were present. Forced mom to have to do an action. In Patty's case, she's doing a classic mother killdeer. Show of hands, how many of you have ever been fooled by the mama killdeer? Yeah. Yep, she's flapping along on the ground, oh, I broke a wing, and she keeps checking you, following her. Oh, I broke a wing. Okay, dummy, you're far enough. Flies around behind you, goes back right to about where you saw her, and then you see little balls of fluff moving along. Patty's doing a classic mama kill deer because she's got an older youngster with her. But Freeman footage, here's the other thing. Those footprints you see in the Freeman footage, legendary Bigfooter by the name of Wes Summerlin, who is the god of Bigfooting of the Blue Mountains, looked at that video and he says, you got Big Jill. Wes Summerlin knew the Bigfoot in the Freeman footage was a female. Wes knew it as soon as he saw the film. Took the rest of us how many decades to get up to speed with that. So you got Patty on the right and you got Big Jill in the Freeman footage. So why are they wide out in the open? Kids. They're having to take an action because of the kids. Think back to Scott's picture. You see the juvenile down there in cover, mom right behind him. He's not kidding about that. It was over a year ago, I saw that picture for the first time, and mom hadn't been pointed out to him. Ladies in the room, if you immediately saw it before the enhancement, guess what? Ladies, a group called the She Squatchers, were the ones that spotted it at one of the Bigfoot events they were all at. And they go, well, what about the adults standing right there? And Scott went, what? So, Scott and I are now absolutely of the belief that most of your encounters with a Bigfoot are actually going to be the kids. The parents don't like getting involved with us unless they absolutely have to because the kids are doing something dumb. Scott's picture, pretty classic. That sway, look at you thing. I get a lot of that, but I can also get it out of the adults. But the kids are watching us and learning about us. Their curiosity about us can make them do dumb things. Adult males, more common to have interactions with. If you're doing something that kind of steps on their toes from a territorial aspect. And since I have been doing this, I've heard the stories. We were camped out in the woods, or we bought a new trailer, and we're in our new house, and we're about usually less than a week in, and something walked up, let out a big growl, and went bang on the side of it. Usually leaves a dent. Stick-built structures, it can actually break the siding. That's just basically Big Daddy letting you know, I'm here, you're in my neighborhood. And it's pretty doggone frightening when you're in a camping trailer in the woods and he does that. As I talked to a guy at Eugene a few weeks back, he said it walked up to their trailer, hit it, and moved that thing 3 feet and left a heck of a dent on the right rear side of it. That was the only encounter they had for the week they were up there riding their dirt bikes. All right, so we came here because we wanted to hear from you guys. That is definitely what we want to do. There are no dumb questions. We're just here to listen to what you guys have to say. It may wind up providing some clues